Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage. This podcast is dedicated to helping attorneys earn more money, get better clients, and spend more time with family. I'm your host, Alay and founder of Law Firm Success Group. Smart business guidance for small law firms begins in 3, 2, 1. It's my pleasure to welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage Shoshanna French, owner of Shoshanna French Consulting. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being on the show. I'm looking forward to digging into our conversation today. I have to ask, your tagline says you're trusted by NFL, National Football League executives. Tell us a little bit about that.
So how I originally started my business was by doing sort of intuitive readings. And I was on the news in Denver, where I live in Colorado, and an NFL defense coordinator heard me, and he came in with his family for a session. And then Don and I have just known each other now for, a decade and a half. He worked for the Baltimore Ravens for both of their wins for the Super Bowl, which was like his ultimate goal, obviously, as a coach, was to be with a Super Bowl winning
Of
team, and he
course.
did that 2 years in a row. So that's that story.
That is awesome. So are you by any chance a Broncos fan?
I Here's the truth of it. I am not. I think professional sport
Not really a sport.
athletes are
Okay.
amazing, but I will go to any live sport. Love seeing athletes in action, but following them, it's an unfortunate thing that all of my friends love the Broncos. I grew up here, but it's not my thing.
That's my dad's favorite football team. When he came over from India, the first place he went to was Boulder, and he went to university there, and he is a huge Broncos fan. So
Oh my
he'll
gosh, I
love that we're
love that
talking today.
story. I love that. He probably still loves the Buffs too, I imagine.
I think he does, yeah. But we're not here to talk football in Colorado, even though those are two awesome things. We're here to talk about something called intuition. And just the baseline, everyone, because we have a lot of attorneys on the show, may not be comfortable with that term or know what it is exactly. Um, Tell us, what does intuition actually mean?
So I want to say two things. One, I'll give everybody like a very basic definition, but I think the thing that gets people a little like, what, is that there is an association that it's like a spiritual faculty, and it's not. So all intuition is a direct way of knowing or understanding something without knowledge or experience. It is rare that I meet someone, I mean, pretty rare, and I've trained 11,000 people, that they'll say something like, well, I've never had that happen. I think in my 20 years of doing it, I've maybe met one or two people that, following my explanation of what it is, they're like, oh, well, yeah, I've had that kind of experience before, but I didn't know that was intuition. So everybody has it. Everybody has had some experience of it. But for some people, because it sounds a little woo, like to use that terminology,
Yeah.
it's not to me. Uh, but that's what intuition is.
Okay. I appreciate you sharing that with us. That is a wonderful baseline for us to start. I'm going to throw a couple of quick phrases at you, and then I would love to hear what your take is on those. I think they're all somewhat related to intuition. First of all, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So what does intuition have to do with using the Force, if anything?
Okay, so I love Star Wars too. To me, this, like, when I've watched and I hear Yoda talk about like harnessing the Force, to me, spiritual faculty. It's about being connected to all that is. You hear people talk about it, when they do ayahuasca, when they do like medicine journeys, that they're tapping into some alternate dimension or some energy. If you take it out of in that case, sci-fi fantasy, right? If you take it out of that instance and instead you just put it squarely in science, we all have electric, like our bodies produce electricity. So to me, when people talk about the force from a non sort of, fantasy perspective or sci-fi perspective, it really is like the truth of what's called heart math. When you put a baby against the skin of a mom, their hearts start to beat at the
Mm.
same rhythm. And when we're with people, and it's shown both in our brain waves and also the heart, like the beats of our heart. Like, we've been with people who stress us out and it makes our heart race. It's not any different. You can be with people who calm you down. So to me, I would say every time I ever watched Star Wars, I was like, oh, that's like being able to get into energy and like feel how people are. To me, intuition is a way of reading the information that's there that maybe you consciously did not compute that that was important. So you put it aside. And intuition allows you to sort of like go back and go, oh, wait, hold on. When I was with that person, I felt really hesitant. Or when I was about to sign that contract, I felt a little
Mhm.
uncomfortable. Or even though this house looks like a money pit, there is something about it that just feels right. I'm going to be a yes to that. Like those moments are a little different than the
Yeah,
force.
exactly. And so that's the next one is this phrase of trusting your gut or going with your gut. How does that relate, if at all, to intuition?
So trusting your gut is just about the where it occurs for you. So how all of us use our intuition and how intuition comes into our body. The word I use is called translation. We all translate intuition a little different. So for some of us, we get a feeling in our gut. We just get this like sense that something is not quite right or that something feels really right, even though we don't have any clear evidence that we could point out why. It's like if you've ever met someone that you feel like you've known for a million years and you're like, why do I feel so comfortable with them? And there is no real reason that you can point to. That's like your gut. But some of
Got it.
us, we know things. Like a lot of the people that I work with that are leaders, they just know stuff and they've just always thought I'm really creative. But actually, it's their intuition, ideas for startups or book ideas. Glennon Doyle talks about this inner voice. For some of us, we hear kind of this inner voice, your conscience, or whatever you want to call it. And then for some of us, we see it. There's this book for your people listening today. If you've ever read it, it's really good. It's called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And it
Yes.
talks about, yeah,
Yes.
and it
I was
talks
just going
about,
to mention that.
yeah, funny how that works, right? So it's that in between moment when we see something and have a sense of something that we can't necessarily point to what we know, but we know something. Like we don't have any knowledge or experience of this thing, but something doesn't quite look, sound, feel right. Or it does feel right, look right, or sound right, even though we don't have evidence for why it would be. But that book in particular is really interesting as like a scientific kind of background of people who rely on their gut.
And I don't know if it was in Blink or in Outliers that he mentioned this. The book doesn't stick with me, but the term does, and it's called thin slicing, where someone's accumulated, so much experience that they're able to, I guess, figure things out very quickly. How is that tied to intuition, if at all?
I I would say that I think sometimes it's people want to understand what intuition is and where it comes from, and because there's lots of I'll say it like this: it doesn't really matter where it comes from or what exactly it is. What's more important is understanding how yours works, and then you get to decide what you think it is. So I have one client who. For her, the way that she really uses it, she starts companies and then sells them and starts companies and sells them. So she gets ideas and then she follows her ideas. And then those ideas lead her to the right people, the right circumstance, and the right companies to then build. And then she sells it again. And the timing of the selling is related to what she knows. The buying is related to what she knows. She like sent me a text 2 weeks ago to thank me for what she learned because she woke up in the morning knowing that she needed to sell some stock. She didn't know why, and if you all of us know what's happened over the last 2 weeks with stock market, just over the last month or so. But she woke up that morning, she sold United and she sold Apple, and the next day it crashed, and she made, let's just say she made a lot of money because she would have lost 60%. And that came from just a knowing. Now, do every one of my clients do that? No, because that's not in their faculty. Like that's not their wheelhouse is not
Yeah,
stocks, but it is hers, right? But I've had clients who are lawyers who've used it to negotiate challenging civil lawsuits. I've had clients who've used it in negotiating sales for companies. People do it for all different kinds of things. So, what exactly it is, I mean, that would take, I don't know, probably thousands of years and lots of study. Basically, what I
got
know
it.
is it's how our brains are designed. And so once you learn how to use it and you have the tools to use it, then you don't have to wait for it to strike. Because a lot of people are like, well, I've had that sense before. Like I'm waiting for a good idea and I'm kind of just waiting. But once you know how to use intuition, you don't have to wait for intuition to strike. You can just use the tools and get the insider information immediately.
Yeah, and you work with a lot of attorneys helping them figure this out. how their intuition works and how they can apply it in their lives and in their practices. Why is this a really interesting skill for attorneys to develop?
I work with a lot of brilliant women who are attorneys who work in really large kind of corporate situations. They were either the general
General
staff. What is that
counsel?
called? General
Counsel?
counsel.
Yeah.
Thank you. They were the general counsel, or they just worked, for a large firm, and they got tired of that vibe, and they decided to open their own practice, or just, kind of be a contract lawyer as needed. And they're really, really smart. But when you go from what's familiar to what's unfamiliar, you go back to what you know, and usually what you know doesn't help. And so the reason why lawyers are so good for this is they like to accumulate tools that help them solve problems faster. I haven't met a single lawyer that is not a fast problem solver. Like every lawyer I've ever worked with, and even other lawyers that I know that aren't clients but are friends, they just love solving problems. And this is a tool for solving problems more quickly. But it's also a tool when you find yourself in positions where, let's say, imposter syndrome or upper limits. Gay Hendricks coined that term in The Big Leap. It's just like where you go to a place where you are all of a sudden doing something that you aren't sure you know how to do, or you don't feel comfortable doing. Intuition is good for you to be able to hear inside, outside of the noise of your brain and all of its opinions, and even the external noise of other people's opinions. So that's, I think, why lawyers find it to be a great tool, because it doesn't really matter what your experience is, what your education is. And even if you know something or not, intuition cuts through all of that and helps you see things very, very clearly. So then you have another tool that can help you make better decisions. So I think that's why the lawyers have appreciated that, because they're problem solvers and it's a tool for problem solving.
Sure. And I can see why you do what you do, because it would be very easy for someone to say, well, I want to trust my intuition, and they get themselves into a lot of trouble for a lot of different reasons. So when people are trying to kind of figure out faster ways to make decisions or trust their gut more or tap into intuition, what are some of the common mistakes that you see them making?
Mm. Uh, it's a misnomer to think that intuition is like omnipotence, because it's not. It's not like all of a sudden I was joking about this with a client. It's not like all of a sudden you have a crystal ball on your desk. Like, do I
Darn.
take this? Right? Wouldn't that be great? Like, do I take this case because it's going to go in my favor? Like, it doesn't work like that. However, you can use intuition to go, is this case that just came across my desk, is this a good fit for my firm and for my area of expertise? And your intuition can tell you something that, whether your brain is like, this is like in employment law, but it's in like an area of employment law that I'm not familiar with. Maybe I shouldn't do it. Like, that's your brain. Intuition can like help guide you outside of that. So common mistakes are thinking that intuition leads you to know everything. That's not how it
Just
works.
like putting blind faith in intuition. Yeah.
Yeah, no, please don't do that. The other big mistake I see is that people practice using their intuition and they think that it was their intuition when actually it was something else. And so they follow it and then they get super discouraged because they're like, see, it didn't work. So that's why I don't listen. And often I'm like, well, like, let's roll back when you used it. Intuition is really, really good for things that you do not know. So if you have an already existing, I don't know, solution to a problem that you've solved before, use that. Like, if you get a flat tire, call AAA, like, or watch a YouTube video to teach you how to change your tire, but you don't need your crystal ball for that. Like,
Yeah.
you don't need intuition for that. So, but if you find yourself like trying to figure out which tow company to call and there are 10, and you're trying to narrow down which one is the right one, intuition can actually help you do that, because we get innate senses, like you were talking about thin splicing. Like, I don't know exactly why it works, other than that it does. I've been studying it for 30 years and I've taught it to 10, like between 10 and 11,000 people. So the biggest mistakes are, one, not knowing what intuition is versus what it's not, using it in places where your logic would work great. Like just use your logic.
Right.
And then thinking that intuition can make you omnipotent or know everything. That's not how intuition works. It's a soft skill that you can develop.
And two applications that just jumped to mind right away for me was thinking about clients. When you're talking to a prospective client, sometimes as an attorney, you'll have kind of a little yellow warning flag going off in the back of your mind saying, I don't think this person is going to be a good fit, this company is going to be a good fit. And then, most of us have done it. We've gone ahead anyway, and only
Mhm.
to realize, oh my God, I should have listened to my inner voice and not taken on this client because it blew up. And the other one is with regards to hiring. We
Absolutely.
run into this all the time. And hiring is interesting because there's so many different factors at play. There's your intuition, then there's how you connect with the person. There's a lot of biases, implicit biases that
Yep.
get rolled in. It can be hard to parse all this stuff out. So if someone said that they wanted to maybe increase the speed of their decision making by relying more on intuition and increase the effectiveness of their decision making by relying on more on intuition, what are some things that they could do themselves to kind of get them started?
So I like acronyms, and I think lawyers like things that are easy to remember. So then you can pull it out. So here's an acronym that will be easy to remember. PAL. Make your intuition your pal. PAL. P stands for pause. If you, in your logic, we move pretty fast. We move pretty fast. And then there'll come a moment where you now have overanalyzed the crap out of something, or you're like, I just need more data. And then you have way too much data and you're totally overwhelmed. So pause collecting data, pause doing anything else about the decision. Take a moment, because the voice of intuition is much quieter than your brain, and actually even much quieter than the external noise. If you have colleagues or trusted people that you'd ask, pause for a moment. That's what the P stands for. A stands for ask. Intuition is prompted by your curiosity. So sometimes we think, because a lot of people I work with believe in intuition. So it's not like I'm having to overcome their skepticism. They believe in it,
Right.
but they believe that other people are good at it, not them.
Hmm.
So the asking is about what are you truly curious about? Not what are you trying to fix, not what are you trying to solve for, but genuinely what are you curious about? So what I mean is when you're hiring somebody, the fixing it would be like, is this person the right person for the job? Well, that's a complex question that your intuition can't answer. It's better at answering simpler questions. A better question is this person a great long term fit for my firm? Like, that's a much simpler question because you're just asking about fit. You're not asking about right. Right based on what? Right based on knowledge, experience. You have their CV for that. Like, you have their resume and their cover letter for that. So ask questions that you're curious. So good questions are questions that don't have should or shouldn't. They don't have right or wrong in them. They're more like great fit in alignment with my goals. Um, can I serve them well? Will we have great partnership? So those are the kind of questions. And then the last one is L for listen.
Hmm.
And that one's the hardest one. So I know that everybody has a complex relationship with meditation. So I'm just going to say that first, because I recognize that, we're here in the Western world. Some people have like a don't tell me I need to do that. But here's the reality: your brain is going all the time. And if you're a smart person, which if your
If you're
listenership
listening to
is
this
lawyers,
podcast, you totally are.
you totally are. And so your intuition is much quieter than your brain. So the pause is about taking a pause, not getting more information, asking the right questions. But the listen part is take the time to be quiet and still and see what arises. Now, I do a newsletter every week on LinkedIn, and I give lots and lots of tools and practices to help do this in real time. But if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, I hear what she's saying, but like, what does that look like? So this is what it would really look like in your real life in the morning before you open your computer or check your voicemail or whatever your typical morning when you get into the office is. Before you do any of that, take out a piece of paper and write the question: where does my practice, where does my firm, where does my business need my attention today? Just ask that question. Write it on a piece of paper, take a moment, 5 breaths. That's all I'm saying. follow your breaths for 5 full breaths. Slow. Turn off all the alarms on your phone and all the stuff, but set like a timer for 5 minutes that you give yourself the time. And then look down on this piece of paper and then ask that question and just start kind of free form dumping your brain out. Ask the question a second time, dump out your brain more, and then ask it a third time. By the third time you ask that question, finally your intuition will come in because all the other stuff that was top of mind now has been released. And then see, like, oh, got it. What my business says that I need my attention is actually not what I was going to do this morning, which is check my email. But instead, I'm going to review this talk that I'm giving in a week. I don't know why, but I'm going to listen to that, do that first, and then move to the next thing. Moving that way allows for you to just move in a slower way, which is part of how intuition works. It moves more slowly. It's, I'm sure everybody's heard that expression, move slow to move fast. And intuition is an example of that. You're moving slow to move fast later. You're slowing down, you're listening, you're paying attention to those subtle communications so that in the future, when you are, let's say, engaged with a potential big client contract and you notice that feeling, the feeling is louder because you've done the practice to hear it louder. And then you've done the practice to trust it. So you follow that and go, I don't think I'm a good fit, but I do have a friend who is a lawyer who I think a colleague who would be a great fit. Let me give you their information. And then a month later, you find out from your colleague why they would have been a bad fit for you. So then you get the evidence of why you got it, but you don't get the evidence at the very immediate moment that you get that feeling. That takes time.
Yeah, it sure does. And I'm sure as a skill, it becomes easier and easier over time. And this is one of these things where it may have been easier to do this 100, 200 years ago than it is today. And it is just going to continue to accelerate. Having a quiet mind is harder and harder to get to these days. And so that's why things like meditation are becoming so much more commonplace, and we need them more. We may not have needed them as much before, but before we didn't have email, we didn't have cell phones, regular phones, all the social media channels, all the like everything's just like boom, boom, boom. So making that quiet space is a lot harder now than it used to be. And even in the car, which can be a quiet space, we turn on the radio, or maybe you're listening to this podcast, which if you are, you should totally continue. Um, but this is also something, Shoshana, I'd love to get your take on this. At Law Firm Success Group, we really want our clients to take time off. And I don't mean the vacations where they're waking up and working for half a day. But really, even if it's a few days or a week or 2 weeks, great. But taking that time and unplugging and not doing any work in your firm. And we tell our clients there's a lot of benefits in doing that. One is by preparing your firm to take time off, you're actually preparing your firm to run without you, which is what many of our attorneys want. The second thing you're doing is you're giving yourself the peace of mind to get these really transformative ideas about your law firm to come into your mind, because they won't do that if you're going a mile a minute. You've got to relax, you've got to unwind, and you've got to quieten that mind. Let your subconscious do its thing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of the pause. It what I'll say is that in the practice of training people, what I commonly find is that, and I've been in business for 20 years. It was 20 years in January. And so I get it. You listening, I get it. The temptation is, especially if you're growing your business, the temptation is to think, I always have work to do. But here's the reality. You own a business. There's always more work to do. But that old expression, you can't pour from an empty cup, although it's like a cliche, adage, it especially in business is really, really true, especially if you run a business and you have staff. So they're looking to you and they're looking to your leadership. But if you are tapped out and you press and you push through that, I've worked with people who are on the other side of burnout, and burnout is legitimately a thing that can happen. So I so agree with you. And I myself find it challenging. And it's always a goal for me when I do travel, that's not for work, that's, just for pleasure, that it's like no, we're not working today. And when I really press into that and like let myself have that time, I wrote half of my book when I came back from a vacation once. It's almost done. Another time, I had like this great idea for collaborative opportunity and created something in my business. Another time, and this was like an aside, but it was still important, had this deeper connection with my husband, which is like important to me. We've been together for 20 years. And that wasn't possible because we're both entrepreneurs when we're checking our phone and we're like managing emails and like, managing the businesses. So you don't have you don't live life to work. You work so that you have the space and lifestyle to live fully. So yeah, I love that you do that for your clients. It is essential.
Totally. And so, as you're thinking about what lies ahead for your business, what are some things that you have going on that are really exciting and interesting for you?
So I was saying to you before we started, so I've been in the process of a rebrand for about 4 months. Let me tell y'all, if you've ever done this, you understand. But if you've never done a rebrand, it's a lot.
It is a lot of work.
So
Yes.
yeah, but I'm excited about it. There is, all the visuals, but then there's also the thinking behind. So a couple things I'm really excited about. One is new offers. I have a group program for leaders called Lead from Within that is really for leaders who find themselves in positions where they're struggling with gate like too much information and they really want to do well, but all of what they know is not making any difference. And so they're in a place where they're really ready for new tools. So I'm excited about that. And I'm also just excited about intuitive strategy sessions. It's something that I've been doing for years, but I've never offered it in a more formal way. People who are stuck and they, about one topic in their work, in their life, they get on the phone with me for 90 minutes and we really work through it. And then people leave having that thing solved. We use my intuition because I've been training it for 30 years and
Yeah.
I have 20 years of business experience. So I'm a strategist. And then like I mentioned, I'm almost done with the book. So those are the things that I'm really, really excited about: the rebrand and what that means, the new offers, and then this book that I'm really, really excited about.
Awesome. Well, when your book is published, we'll have you back on the show and love to talk more about the book at that time. Meanwhile, if people want to reach out to you, whether it's for a strategy session or for your group program or just to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Best way is to find me on LinkedIn, Shoshanna French. I am the only one on LinkedIn. So that makes that easy. Just
Awesome.
find me and it has newsletters and all kinds of stuff, and we can chat and set up a conversation.
Wonderful. Shoshana, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Lawyer Business Advantage podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen. And I want to hear from you, so connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you think of this episode. And if you are a solo or an owner of a small law firm and you're looking to earn more money, attract better clients, or reduce your stress, we would love to talk with you to see how we can help. Request your free law firm assessment by visiting lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. Again, that URL is lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you for listening. My name is Alay Yajnik. Until next time, remember, you can seize freedom. You can embrace happiness. You can build your perfect practice.